welcome back to Bridging the Gap. My name is David James, and we're here doing executive decision. We are joined by our County Executive, Julie Giordano. Thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, and thank you for coming to my office.
Yes,
I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure coming here. We're also joined by our host here, which is Tyler Jones. Tyler?
Thank you for having me again. Thank you for welcoming me into your office. I'm currently the campaign manager for Kanisha Lacole, who's running for school board, Wycomico County District 7. If you're not already following those pages, please do so.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about your background so they'll know about it?
I've had some fun in the community. I had time. I volunteered with Phoenix Youth Project for many years. I was the president of that board. I was the chairperson for the communications of Short Progress before the rebrand. I'm part of the Tri County MLK Coalition that does the annual Dr. King celebration. What am I not a part of? I don't know. The list goes on.
Well, we appreciate it. Tyler, would you like to ask the first question to the executive?
Certainly. Once again, thank you for having us.
Sure.
And I just really wanted to dig into the 287G.
Sure.
I think a lot of members of the community don't understand why that's important in the community and what you were trying to accomplish by pushing that through.
Yeah, so the 287G actually was not even my idea. So it was actually brought to me by Sheriff Lewis. He met with me and had me come over to his office. He talked about public safety. He talked about, border security is a huge thing for him. And illegal immigration is something that he feels very, very strongly about and passionate about. And he wanted to know if I would support the initiative if he went forward with 287G. So the original thought was that everything was going through the sheriff's office. The only thing I oversight of the sheriff's office is the budget, but that's pretty much it. It's a very finite thing. He is an elected official just like the state's attorney, and so they run their organizations pretty independently from, county government, so to speak, even though they sort of fall under the umbrella. It's kind of an interesting setup. But I told him 100%, I support you as the sheriff, I support your initiative. And as we move forward in that 287G conversation, he realized that he could not do it by himself. The county executive, my signature had to go on it somewhere, and we just had to figure out what that looked like. So he brought me back over and we had that conversation. We looked at the different models. We originally looked at the jail enforcement model. We realized the amount of training that takes place. We are 30 correctional officers down.
Oh, wow.
And so we knew that it was going to put an unnecessary strain on our correctional officers and on that whole facility. And so then we looked at the warrant service officer model. And basically what that entails is there are incarcerated individuals that are also on ICE's radar. What happens is that our deputies, our original thought was that our deputies are going to serve a warrant to the already incarcerated individuals that allows us to hold them just for an additional 48 hours. So they're already incarcerated now. They'll be held for additional 48 hours, and then within that 48-hour period, ICE would have to come over and do their I don't want to say.
Paperwork.
Yeah. I mean, they do. It's not interrogation because that's the wrong word, but they actually, they kind of do their vetting process. That's the word I was looking for. They do their vetting process. Right now, we are currently doing something similar, not even entering into 287G. So when somebody is an incarcerated individual and they are getting ready to be released by the commissioner or whatever the case may be, if they are on ICE's radar, we actually let them know, hey, they're going to be let out at 10 o'clock. You can be here to get them or not. You know what I mean? And then we release them into the community regardless, and then ICE is there. So we kind of do something similar. What we were hoping to do is to help them out a little bit with the additional 48-hour hold, and that was really the only difference, and that was kind of getting us in the door. What we were hoping is that, and what we were sort of told is that the 287G with the community, when different communities are working with ICE, it sort of puts guardrails up on the community, right? So people are so fearful that ICE is going to come in masks and they're going to be taking these people off of the streets. They are able to do that now. Sure. I think I haven't seen any masked individuals, but that's not to say it hasn't happened. They can do that now, and when you enter in the 287G, you almost hope that ICE then sort of respects those guardrails and says, okay, they're working with us, this is how we're going to do this. So that was kind of the thought behind it. Then it sort of metamorphed into only I was going to be signing it. The deputies then could not be a part of it due to the legal opinion and the guidance that came out from the Attorney General. He said Maryland law says correctional officers, not law enforcement, so law enforcement cannot be involved at all.
Correct.
And so at that point in time, we then took a step back because this was, again, really something through the sheriff's office. When we realized the sheriff's office wasn't going to be a part of it, we're now kind of in that reevaluation phase to see, is this something we really need to do? And so we're kind of evaluating that. There has been some talk in this upcoming legislative session that there may be some changes to Maryland law. And so they're looking at maybe they'll add law enforcement. I seriously doubt it. It might be that they remove correctional officers completely. So it's going to be kind of up in the air, and that's why we sort of took that step back. Currently, right now, I could enter into that agreement with my correctional officers right now, could obviously do that. But we decided, based on the guidance coming out, the fact that the sheriff couldn't necessarily be involved the way that he wanted to, and then this upcoming session, it was just better for us to just pause everything.
More info. You're getting more info before you go forward.
Exactly.
So is it a political, is this like a political chess game going on between the governor and the administration in Washington, or?
I think so. I mean, everything is politicized, right? So you're going to politicize everything. I think, the previous administration, federal administration under the Biden administration, border security just wasn't a top priority. It's now a top priority of the Trump administration. So, and that's just a difference. I mean, that's just one of the differences between the two. So definitely a priority of this administration. So you do kind of see that battle, back and forth. You have a very Democratic state with a Republican-led federal, government. So, you're always going to have that. And then you have counties like ours that are, pretty much a red county for the most part, but they're in a Democratic state with this red federal, the federal government. So you're really trying to do that balance, and it is difficult sometimes. But yeah, I would say everything is political, honestly.
Well, I did hear the public outcry at the county council meeting. I know you were there. Many concerns were addressed, which you also just talked about, which was people coming in mass, grabbing people, they're going to fight, which I think is a normal response.
Right.
How could we actually safeguard against that?
I don't think there's anything we can do to safeguard against that. So the 287G, the model that I had, literally is not involved in any sort of massed individuals coming into, and doing that. I can't stop the federal government from coming in and doing that. So ICE is going to do their thing. But like I said, our hope was, when I spoke to the sheriff, is that if we are a county that really much is trying to work with ICE and trying to work with that it would put those guardrails up so those type of things don't happen. If we can control it, and it's controlled at our jail, and with already incarcerated individuals, you would hope that the public would not want somebody back out on the street. You know what I mean? At least without being vetted first.
It makes sense.
Yeah, they've broken immigration law, and then they're also in jail for something else. So there's two different crimes that we could say that have already been committed. I wouldn't understand why any person in our society would not want that person vetted to say, okay, you're fine to go back out on the street, because you've already broken two different types of laws within the community, which is why you're in our jail right now. You're not in there for being an illegal immigrant, because we don't do that, but you are in there, for something else that you chose to do. So I think, from the sheriff's perspective, and I don't want to speak for him, but this was very much a public safety thing. And what I don't like about it is all this focus by certain people is on me. It's on the county executive. This was a joint effort. This was a joint thing. And I will tell you, members of that county council would have voted for that, because they wouldn't have said no to the sheriff. They wouldn't have. And they have said behind closed doors that they support it. They've told the head of corrections that they support it. But they want to, showboat over here, which I don't like that at all. Right. Because, if you feel a certain way, that's fine. But just stand your ground and say, this is how I feel. You know what I mean? Don't cater to an audience, because it gives them a false hope, as if they have, the county council on their side, or some members of the county council. Meanwhile, they're going behind closed doors over at the sheriff's office saying we 100% support this. So it's just, that part's really frustrating. I will say I at least respect the sheriff enough, and I hope people respect me enough to where my opinion never swayed, it never changed. This is what we were going to do in the name of public safety. It's never to make people scared. It was never intended to intimidate people. And I understand that there were some people, that were upset about it, but that outcry was so minimal compared to the amount of support we had. Now, granted, they didn't come to the council meeting, but email after email and message after message. There are people that are really upset with the sheriff and I right now because of taking a step back and reevaluating. And I told them, I can't put 98 deputies at risk. I'm not going to do that.
No.
We're not going to do that. So we have a lot of individuals that are very upset with us right now on the other side, because we did pause it. And but that was the smartest thing for us to do, to sort of reevaluate where we are.
I think on the flip side of that conversation, from what I saw and just looking at the county council meeting, is the sheriff walked in and he specifically said, hey, I avoided the public comments because I didn't want to create any confusion. But he is an elected official.
Right.
And part of that is listening to the public comments. And then the concerns of the community are mostly, hey, we don't want people coming in here wearing masks and snatching us off the street. You got to look at the separation of families. So even if, say, a father is incarcerated and he gets deported, what then happens to the family? What then happens to the children? And I think we've all seen those situations where families are separated, the children are separated. And I think that's a major concern here. These are not, these are justified. And I think it's just having a dialogue to address these concerns as opposed to, hey, I specifically avoided that.
Right. Well, I think people also feel that if we don't enter into the agreement, that stops that. I literally cannot stop the federal government.
Yeah,
So
I was about to ask what happens now.
Yeah, the separation of families may still happen. I mean, that still could happen. The fact that we didn't enter into it literally changes nothing when it comes to the federal government. You know, it just shows that our jail is not going to be a holding cell for 48 hours. Like, that's literally the only thing that changes. But ICE is still here. They have an office here in Salisbury. They're out doing what they're supposed to do. But I had a serious conversation with the guy that we have been in contact with and we've been working with.
Sure.
I talked to him on Friday and I said, there is a concern with your MOA that says, this MOA is between a law enforcement agency and ICE, and the state of Maryland says the law enforcement agency can't work with ICE. So I explained to him, I said, if you're going to put these MOAs out, my suggestion is to change it to match Maryland law that says correctional officers, not law enforcement, based on this Attorney General's opinion. So those are things that they're looking at right now. So
will we need more correctional officers if you're able to implement it in the manner that you're suggesting?
No, we won't need any more for the WSO model. If we were to do like the JEM model, yes, absolutely. Because
and what's that model?
So the jail enforcement model is, so right now for warrant service, all we do is serve the warrant and hold the person. ICE comes over and does the vetting. If we're in the JEM model, our correctional officers are trained as ICE vetters. So they work as ICE agents and they will do the vetting process within the jail. So if we wanted to go that direction where they're actually more so doing the vetting piece of it, then it would be a lot more training, and it's really hard because we are 30 officers down. We can't afford to have them leave for a week and go do this training. So that's why the WSO model seemed to be a good compromise, where it's literally doing the same exact thing we're doing now, just with an additional 48-hour hold.
Let me ask you this. I was told by another source that the actual correctional officers, you actually get a bump in pay for doing this, for carrying out this duty. Would that be true?
No, not for the warrant service officer model.
No, I mean for the
jail enforcement model, potentially, if the federal government was willing to supplement that. So we would not supplement that, but if it was coming from the federal government, which, this federal administration put about $174 million into Department of Homeland Security, so there could have been potential funds that could have been brought to the county, but we wouldn't have used any additional funding for that.
Now, since you said funding and for the county, I know a lot of the critics have said this. You said that this would be
budget neutral.
Budget neutral. Is it still
budget neutral?
So where's the gray area that they think that?
I don't know where they get it from. I know they say, well, everything costs money, this, that, and the other, but this is literally doing the job of that particular. Like, when we thought the sheriff's office was going to be involved, the sheriff's office serves warrants. They go out and do that. That's part of their job. So they were going to be serving the warrant while they're on duty. So it doesn't cost anything additional. And then with our jail, our correctional officers, they hold people in jail. That's literally their job. They keep them there. So for an additional 48 hours, it's literally changing nothing. The person who was incarcerated, sitting in a jail cell, is getting ready to be let out. And we're like, hold on 1 second. We're going to go ahead and vet you. Just hold you for an additional 48, up to 48. That doesn't mean they're going to be there for the full 48, just until ICE gets there, does their vetting, and then they either take them at that point in time or they let them back out into the community.
The one thing for me, do we have an immigration problem here on the Eastern Shore?
Well, I think that depends on how you look at it. So from I will say January of 23, so I was elected December of 22, so from January to 23 till about June of this last year, we had 2,456 non-American descent people within our jail system. Now, does that mean that they were illegal? No, because they could have had a visa or a green card or something like that. But of non-American descent, 80 of those people, 80 out of the 2,400 were on ICE's radar. Now that's
only
not
80.
Only 80. Now that doesn't mean that there shouldn't have been more, but that's who they originally had. So that's 55 people a month, you know, that potentially are not only here potentially illegally, but also that are committing other crimes. My thing is, as a parent, if you are a parent of a child, I could not imagine you wanting someone who not only has broken immigration law, that's one thing, but you have them breaking other laws, you know, and then being in our, like, why would we want that person back out on the street without at least being properly vetted? If they're fine, then let them back out on the street. But my thing is, and what the sheriff has said is, we want people here. It's not that we're trying to turn people away, but when you are coming into our community, you're expected to behave. You're expected to behave. You don't get to break immigration law, that's one thing, and then come in here and break other laws. That's ridiculous. That would be, I feel, you know, I was very disheartened that night. I know there were a lot of people that were happy, but I felt we failed the public. I do feel like we failed the public in a public safety aspect, and the sheriff felt the same way. We are doing this to protect the citizens of this county, for you, for any children out there, you know, whatever the case may be. And I think that, you know, people, you know, and ICE probably hasn't, you know, helped themselves in a lot of different things, but, you know, people have this like false sense of, you know, security with them. Obviously don't trust them, you know, and that sort of thing. But that's not my, you know, that's not a me issue. Like it's not, like I can't control how they behave. But what I can control is what happens here in the county. And what we were hoping is to sort of partner with them and kind of say, look, Wacomico County is willing to work with you, but these are the guardrails that we're setting forth. We want people, you know, we want you vetting people who not only have broken immigration law, but are incarcerated at this point in time, because do we want those type of people back out in our community? So. Well,
here's my question on that. When they take in anybody, I'm not even talking about somebody who's a legal immigrant, I'm talking about just somebody who's been picked up. Don't they run the background to see if they're one in any other state?
So they do that, yes, but that has nothing to do with their immigration. So we don't check their immigration status at this point.
Oh, that doesn't happen?
Legally we cannot, because we cannot hold somebody for their legal status. Like
wow.
That's per the state of Maryland, that's law. We cannot hold somebody, you know, per their immigration status. But under 287G, it allows you to hold them for a short period of time while that vetting happens. So that's why the 287G sort of gives your correctional facilities sort of a layer of protection to say, okay, we know the state of Maryland doesn't allow you to hold people, you know, for their immigration status, but under 287G, we can hold you for a certain amount of time, and then you know, either let you back out into the community.
And it's 48 hours.
And it's 48 hours, and that's the max. Usually ICE is over there within a couple hours, so it's usually not held that long.
And I think my reservation on that is, if we don't have a large immigration problem, and this isn't to combat what you said, I'm just thinking out loud, but if we don't have an immigration problem and there's not really statistics showing where the crime has increased by immigrants per se, it seems like an extra unnecessary step because of politics.
Right. So I think when we have 2,456 people, that's 55 people a day, that's 2 per day, that we're not sure. To me, that is a problem. Right. Like, so I view that as a problem. So I think it's just on how you interpret the data. But I think we owe it to the public here, where, you know, those 2,500 people or so should be vetted. Should, you know, these are people. I mean, what if we had a situation like the Rachel Morin situation on the other side, you know, in Harford County? Like, what if that happened? You know, for example, that night at the council meeting, ICE did not get there in time, and we couldn't hold them for 48 hours. What if that person had been let out on the street and committed a crime? You know what I mean? And we could have stopped that. You know what I mean? Because the idea is to protect. And look, at the end of the day, that's the sheriff's job. His job is to serve and protect. And he felt this was the best course of action to move forward. So anything when it comes to a public safety decision, that's his decision. You know, and we're there to be supporting roles. The council is there to be a supporting role. The state's attorney, myself, we are there in kind of a supporting manner. There are some times where the state's attorney has to make decisions in support of law enforcement. There are times where I have to make decisions in support of law enforcement, and there are times that the council has to do it. You know what I mean? But all of us in running for office, and you know what we have, I don't think anybody could argue that I don't support public safety, that, the state's attorney doesn't support public safety, and even our council doesn't. Nobody would say that they don't support public safety.
Right.
So we have to be supporting factors, with the sheriff. So when he says this is for public safety, we kind of take his lead on that. So, and I think that that's what some people were kind of forgetting is, they're giving me a hard time. I'm not really giving him a hard time, which is fine. I mean, that's okay. I'm strong at it, or whatever else. I got.
You do a good job with it.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, I think there needs to just be a public dialogue just to have the conversation and put out why. I know that safety is everyone's top concern, but just have the community informed.
Right.
And you will have less.
Well, I think we actually met in my office. I had Monica Brooks, so from the NAACP. We had Reverend Toussaint here. We had somebody else from the Haitian community. So we've met, like, in that type of, environment and had those conversations. And I said to them,
You talking from the sheriff's office, though, weren't you? You were talking.
Yes, because as you just stated, there's only so much, like, it's a partnership, and you're following the lead of the person who is in charge to keep us safe.
Right.
But from him.
From him,
We need to have that dialogue there.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of individuals, I think, after the council meeting that spoke to him and said they really wanted to come see him, and he said, I have an open door, so I think hopefully that will happen.
Okay. Okay. Well, that'll be the conclusion of this segment. We're going to be back in a few moments. I just think that this has actually been a good dialogue. Thank you, Tyler. And overall, I see this as a safety measure for the community, and I do agree with you. There do need to be more information. You do a great job of sharing information. Not saying Sheriff Lewis doesn't, but I think a town hall from the sheriff's office might be what you're talking about. Am I correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you. We will be back in a few moments.
Welcome to another episode of the Executives Month in a Minute. I'm your County Executive Julie Giordano, and let's take a look at the month of October. October literally was one of the busiest months that we have had, and we started the month by welcoming Breeze Airways here to Salisbury. So if you need any flights to Florida, make sure to use Breeze. I then attended the James N. Bennett Memorial Garden rededication ceremony after 25 years. And then we did a ribbon cutting for the brand new sheriff's office. If you have not seen that building, it is truly amazing. I then was fortunate enough to be the guest speaker at the Rotary Club of Salisbury. Thank you so much for the invitation. And then we had another ribbon cutting at Leonard's Mill Park for our brand new dog park. Bailey had a blast. We then attended the Fruitland Chamber of Commerce monthly event where we got to hear Senator Mary Beth Carosa speak about the upcoming legislative session. Then we received some sad news on the passing of Delegate Charles Otto. Delegate Otto will always be remembered for his strong voice here for the shore on agriculture and our shore way of life. He truly will be missed, and this upcoming session will not be the same without him. Then the weekend came, and we were celebrating Rusty Taylor for his retirement of 25 and a half years at our corrections facility. Rusty, thank you so much for your dedication to Wicomico County. That evening, I headed to Ocean City for the COPS annual dinner. COPS stands for Concerns of Police Survivors. It was an amazing, touching event with so many people from all over the state. Then we had some celebratory news. We were able to announce that Adam Corey is now our Deputy Director of Public Works, and Miss Kaylee Justice is our new Deputy Director of Planning and Zoning. Congratulations to you both. Your leadership is amazing, and we look forward to working with you in your new role. I then attended a ribbon cutting at Wok and Bowl. If you have not tried their food, it is absolutely delicious. Make sure to check it out. Then myself and Bunky and Steve, we traveled to Washington, D.C., and we were able to have an amazing conversation between both Secretaries of Commerce in the state of Virginia and the state of Maryland to see where we can work together. We then wrapped up the month of October by celebrating the life and legacy of Kimmy Schultz Box with a swing dedication at Wetipgwin Park. And that's a wrap. October was super busy, and we look forward to November. So please stay tuned for the next episode of the Executives Month in a Minute.